very good morning to you. It's good to see you on this last Monday of the month of June. So we're almost closing the first half of the year. So I hope that you're well this morning and ready for the week and for the show. My name is Winnie Lubembe, and of course the show is Your World. Now, June 26th is observed as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. And at the same time, it's also the Global Day of Action. And of course, the theme is all about support, don't punish. And of course, we all know that this is actually a day aimed at an expression of its determination to strengthen action and cooperation to achieve the goal of international society free of drug abuse. So with an estimated 38.6 million people with a drug use disorder globally, illicit drug use and dependence are key public health areas. And of course, today on the show, would want to understand, so what exactly will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? Well, of course, what are some of the gaps that we need to identify, but at the same time, what areas need to be strengthened, and especially when we're talking about legislation, policies, leadership as well, all right? But also not forgetting the whole aspect about prevention. So you want to stick around until the end of the show to understand that and much more, all right? And of course, before we get into the conversation, just to put you up to speed with an ongoing campaign that you should be knowing about, and it's all about Colgate. And children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources, and Colgate is asking you to help change this. So just with a little water can make a big difference. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy exclusively at Naivas, you help Colgate build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. So what you need to do is just give a helping hand and shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. For more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com. Remember, terms and conditions apply, all right? And of course, let's come back and get to understand what the figures say. And this is as far as the World Drug Report, which again, this is on 2023, where again, like we said, the global statistics on drug use say that 1 in every 17 people, okay, worldwide had used a drug in 2021, 23% more than a decade earlier. So of course, massive increase over there. And then the number of drug users grew from 240 million in 2011 to 296 million in 2021, and that represents the 23% increase, all right? And of course, 13.2 million people were injecting drugs in 2021, 18% higher than in 2020. Of course, we'll also be addressing that, and again continues to say that cannabis continues to be the most used drug with an estimated 219 million users, all right? And young people, and we'll also be focusing really on young people as well on the conversation today, where they are more vulnerable to drug use than adults. And of course, this is actually a report that covers ages between 15 and 65 years of age. And of course, the risk of acquiring HIV is 35 times higher for those who inject drugs than those who do not inject drugs. So this is a global statistic, and of course, the situation as it is. But coming back to the country, and of course, we'll be looking at the figures as we continue with the conversation. But according to the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act, it criminalizes, number one, possession and use. There is the whole aspect about trafficking as well. Being found in a room where people use drugs, you'll be in trouble. If you are found in there, of course, we'll be telling you the penalties for the same. And of course, it also continues to say that if you are an owner of a room where people produce or consume drugs, you'll be in trouble as well. And of course, being found with drug-related paraphernalia, yes, you will be in trouble as well. So what exactly does the penalty look? And this is according to the act. So the act provides for penalties ranging from 20 years of imprisonment to life imprisonment or fines of 20 million Kenyan shillings, all right? And of course, again, it is subdivided into different areas, whether it is abuse, whether it is possession, whether it is trafficking, and all those things. Of course, the penalties have been divided into all those areas, all right? So the quick question that we're asking you this morning is, what exactly will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? All right, once again, what exactly will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? You know the drill by now on how to interact with us. And it's very easy at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter is how you can reach us and let us know what exactly it will take for us to achieve a drug-free society. But at the same time, if you want to call in live and first of all, share your concern, all right? If you know someone who knows someone who is either using or abusing and you're trying to help them, but it's becoming a little bit difficult, feel free to also engage with us and give us a call. Our lines are officially open. And of course, we'll be answering all your questions, all right? But the question is pretty much easy, all right? And it says, what exactly will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? So again, my guests are already here. And this is actually like a perfect panel to have this conversation because we have from different areas and different levels, all right? And of course, I'm going to start on my immediate right, okay? And of course, we all know her. Honorable SFSR's Women Representative, Nairobi County, as well as the chapter chair for Eastern and Southern Africa. And this is the Unite Elementary platform. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa. How are you doing this morning?
Very good, very good.
And that subject is really, really close to your heart, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. And of course, we'll be talking more as far as leadership, legislation, policies as well, because we always say right here on this show that Kenya has one of the best policies, right? But then again, when it comes to implementation and the enforcement of this law, sometimes is where we have a bit of an issue, right? But of course, we'd also want to hear from your side, what role do leaders play in terms of making sure that, number one, we have a drug-free society, but also, you know, some of this, and especially when it comes to the punishments, you know, what's going to happen, right? So, of course, we'll be focusing on the same as well. And then on my immediate left, we have George Odalo, who's Executive Director and Founder, Slum Child Foundation. Good to have you this morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Karibu sana on the conversation. Again, very, very important person to also have this conversation, you know, and as far as children are concerned,
yes.
Because again, like I said, the statistics, and especially from the World's, you know, drug reports, they were saying this was, you know, focused from 15 all the way to 65, but 15, you know, 16, these are really, really young people, right?
Yes, yes.
And even statistics from Nakata said the onset and the initiation goes all the way down to 6 years,
yes.
right? So would also want to hear from you, where do they get these drugs from? And what can we do to prevent this and just make sure that our children are safe from drugs? So it's good to have you, George.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll also have Bernice Aponde, who is the CEO of Vocal Kenya. At the same time, she is a drug policy expert and researcher. Perfect person to have on the conversation today. It's good to have you. Karibu sana, Bernice.
Thank you for having me.
And again, this is also a very important, you know, conversation for you as well, given that, you know, you focus on research and data, which I think is important to give us the numbers. But very quickly, can we just localize the numbers before we interrogate the international numbers? And Bernice, I'm going to start with you. What exactly is the situation in the country as at now when it comes to, you know, drug abuse and use and, you know, all those things combined?
Well, we are actually sitting on a time bomb.
Okay.
The reason is because there are increased number of people who are using drugs. Most of it is not reported, and most of them are young people. So the reason why a lot of people are getting into drug use is because of just the pressures of the world. You're hearing depression is all over. You're hearing people are committing suicide. The number of people suffering mental illnesses is increasing. So just because the world has become too much of pressure and life is full of many pressures, and then some people are not able to cope. And I think that that's normal, that some of us have the skills to cope, some of us do not have the skills to cope. So in a normal society, yes, and in every country, the number of people who are using drugs is skyrocketing. And it's everywhere. And Africa is worse because most of it is not reported because of criminalization, the policies you've just talked about. If you look at the Nakada survey that was launched by the CS the other day, they reported mostly on cannabis, but we are not seeing any heroin or cocaine or meth. But we know that they are there. That's why we are having a lot of people who are using drugs. We're having the harm reduction centers. Every day there are people that are reporting drug use. We are having overdoses being reported in the drug dens. And we are even having an increased number of people who are selling drugs. So that automatically tells you that we have a problem and we need to act now.
As soon as possible.
All
right. And you know, I was actually reading through, and there were two interesting statements that I came across, right? So one from the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and they were saying the rationale for criminalizing drug use is deterrence to reduce supply and use of drugs. And they were saying that it's very punitive. Okay, but at the same time, Nakada says the penalties imposed under the law are very lenient. So there's one who says, you know what, looking at it from a human rights approach, this is not right. Criminalizing is not right. But at the same time, Nakada says these penalties are actually very lenient. So it's like, so then which way do we follow? But before we get to that, let's just hear this from a leadership point, and of course, Honorable Esther Pasaris, looking at these numbers, and you know, this starts from the global figures coming back to the national figures, and even the whole aspect about criminalizing. What do you make of these numbers?
You know, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for having this conversation on this day, because you know, and it's a conversation we should almost have every day. There are lots of families that have you know, members of their families that have been using drugs, and they're out there, not even with the families anymore. They've sold almost everything in the family. You know, the family doesn't want anything to do with them because of it becomes, for me, it's an illness. And we have to see it as that. You know, when you're using drugs, you've been pushed by life, as Bernice said, you've been pushed by the hardship of life, and then you end up finding this drug. It's available readily. Your friends tell you about it, or you were introduced to it, and then in the end it becomes a lifestyle, and you become dependent on it, and you need it. So you know, you've got to wean somebody off slowly, gradually, and you've got to give them alternatives. So for me, the idea of a drug-free world is you know, you've said the numbers from 240 to 296, so the numbers are going up. So what we have to do is be realistic and understand that drug users are always going to be there. The question is, how do we handle it? And then also, how do we prevent? I think Nakada's biggest task would be, how do you work with the forces to make sure that these drugs are not readily available in all our institutions? Let's look at Portugal. About 10-15 years ago, Portugal had a huge problem. 10% of their population wore HIV. Drugs were readily available everywhere. And what they decided to do, you know what, we've got to end the spread, all right, of HIV. It's costing us so much, hepatitis B and C. We've got a society that if we're not careful, we'll lose a whole generation. So what did they decide to do is, let's engage in a harm reduction program. Huge. Let's take control as government. Let's invest money in our drug users, because they are citizens, all right? And they put these harm reduction centers. When I was in the health committee in the last parliament, we traveled to Portugal, and we saw these ambulances, these mini vans, and there were places where people would come without, there's no judgment, there's counseling. You get your needle exchange, you know, you bring in the needle that you've used, you'll get a clean needle. There was methadone, you know, so if you are on the drug, we will give you this alternative that is less harmful to you. You know, so the whole idea is harm reduction. And in Parliament, we've worked with Bernice to come up with a harm reduction law in Kenya. And we're already doing harm reduction programs in our country. So the thing is, how do we ensure that drug users, first of all, are not seen as criminals? The criminals are the ones who peddle the drugs, and the government has to deal with it in that respect. I mean, you see somebody who's holding 2 sticks of bhang, and he's being arrested and probably thrown into jail. And the thing is, that was for his own personal use. He's not trading. He's already a drug user. He already needs it, wants it, enjoys it. And you have to remember, what are drugs? You know, people don't realize that drugs is anything that you, coffee is a drug. Wine is a drug. Gin is a drug. You know, then you've got the hard medicines. You've also got pharmaceutical opioids that are also drugs. But the thing is, where does it become abuse? When it's taken in excess and without control, and it worsens your life from wherever you were. Because if you are unemployed and you start using drugs, then you become permanently unemployed. All right, and completely your life becomes even worse than when you were not employed, and your connection with your family distance. So for me, I think we need to understand that drug users, throwing them in jail is not the right thing. The users, all right. We have to actually understand, and we need to make sure that they get counseling. We need to make sure that they access. And you know, the thing is, it's to access the right drug. I was in Geneva recently, and we visited a hospital that actually administers hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, in the hospital. So what happened? Everybody is medically covered. All right, in Switzerland, everybody's got a medical cover. But what happens is, if you are on the hard drug and you need it, right? Your doctor prescribes it. There's a hospital facility where you will go and you will get the pure one. You will not be getting something on the street that is that is actually going to end up killing you. All right, so you get the pure one, and you are it's administered by a medical profession. You have counseling available. There are people who would want to take drugs just like smokers. You have smokers who, you see the packet, it says harmful for you, can kill you, all the pictures, but we have what? We have over 2.3 million people in our country who smoke, and you know it's harmful for you, but they're still smoking. So
so the point is to find ways of reduction. And I'm just thinking in terms of the practicality. Do we have, first of all, the resources that is needed, investment that is needed to make sure that we strongly and strengthen harm reduction areas, but at the same time also talk about and emphasize the prevention aspect of the same. So we'll come back to in terms of the legislation, and even the fact that we're saying these drugs are readily available in the market. So first of all, where do they come from, right? Who are these people who are distributing these drugs to even our children? I mean, as young as 6-7 years, right? So what needs to be done to make sure that we stop it at that level, so that we do not have it in the market? Because sometimes it's difficult to regulate it once it gets into the market. And George, let me bring you into this. And again, we were talking about this earlier on, and I said, I was listening to a certain program, and of course they were talking about the statistics, what is happening to the country, and they're saying that the onset and the initiation is around 6 years, right? But then there's a psychologist who said, listen, we actually did our own study, and we found out that it's actually lower than that. It goes all the way to around 5 years, and also the polydrug users, the also initiation is at age 6. Does this concern you?
Yes.
To a greater extent, it should, right? And it should concern all of us, as far as that is concerned. So you interact with these children. You focus mostly on the prevention aspect of the same. But what exactly are these children saying? Where do they get these drugs from? Are they at home? Who, first of all, introduces them, first of all, to these drugs? Because most of the time we tend to separate alcohol from drugs. So we say alcohol and drug abuse, but really it's one and the same thing.
Okay. First of all, let me say where these children get these drugs are at the family level. That is the first point, because as a father, as a mother, when you come back home with a bottle of alcohol, or you smoke, be it cigarette or whatever, these children tend to look at what you are doing. And then the next thing, they imitate what you are doing. Then the third step is that they will now start to do what they've seen you doing. So that is the first step. Then the second step is at the schools. At times we take our children to schools, but we realize that the role model that or the custodians that we've given out to our children are the one doing this. If you look at the NACADA statistics, they say that where do the children get drugs in school is through the staffs of the school, the teachers, the people who are around that environment. Then the third category is the community, because these children don't live in heaven. They live with us here. They walk and they see someone drunk. There was a time I gave an opportunity to the children that I work with. We meet with them every Saturday from 2 to 4. And then I was like asking them the same question, where do they think? And they were like, it happens. We've seen people falling down, they put it the way it is. We've seen people falling down, we've seen people using this and that. So it is within us. And if we want to bring a change to reduce the number of onset, because for the last 5 years, the number has gone down. The other time NACADA did their studies, 5 years ago, it was 9. Now you see it is 5 to 6. So we are not so sure that maybe in the next 5 years it will even go down. So for us to start bringing this change, it starts from our sitting room, where we are, where we talk with our children. Then we take it to the next level, whereby the people that interact with our children, that nanny that stays with your child, what do they do when you are not there? That uncle, that auntie that interact with your child over the weekend when you're not there, what do they tell your children? So if we're able to bring that change, then automatically the community will change. Then everything will take its shape.
But really, how bad is the situation? Because again, most of the time, and of course I'd also want Bernice to comment on the same, majority of the times when you're talking about data, I mean, and you also mentioned this earlier on, where you can't go to someone's house and ask, so do you use this, do you use that, so then that means the numbers are not, again, what we're seeing might be more than what is reported. So how bad is the situation? But again, for you, George, you know, talking to these kids, and especially in the slums where they are at a high risk of, among other things, of course, being exposed, you know, to some of these drugs, and most of them would also be exposed to hard drugs. So how bad is the situation on the ground when you're interacting with these children?
The situation, sorry, the situation on the ground is actually very bad because, like for me, in a week I can't fail to get cases between 5 to 10 of parents who are completely devastated. They want help from me. And then the only help I can offer is if that child has not reached an addiction stage. But mostly out of the 10, you realize that 7 is completely, they are fully into addiction. So the 3, you see the number is, that is from our own data that we get into the office. But I'm trying to imagine the whole country, how is it? Look at the different slums, and maybe for me, I work in Korogocho slums. Korogocho, Kariobangi, Mathare, you see, that is just a small, how many slums do we have in the whole country? Look at the number of children that we have in the whole country. They are really, really affected. So the situation on the ground is not good. And as Bernie said, we are sitting on a time bomb.
We really are.
If we do not take a change, we don't need legislators to take action now. They will take action, yes, but it starts with us. We are the people who will bring change. And if we don't engage our children, try to change their mind, perception, look at the circles of friends that they have. I mean, it will be very difficult to change things.
Absolutely. All right, very quickly, you know, Madam Pesaris, and especially you represent the women, right? I'd want us to go very quickly because we literally have like 2 minutes before we go on a break. So I don't know if that is enough to talk about the impact that the women face, because we have women who use and abuse drugs, but at the same time, we also have women who are affected by the fact that their spouses, their children are also using or abusing drugs. So again, let's just interrogate the impact.
I think the government now has to recognize that we have this community of drug users, and the families require help. They require counseling, and we, Bernice was sharing some data with me that we have one counselor for 500,000.
500,000,
right?
The ratio of a Kenyan to a psychiatrist is actually 1 to 500,000.
And that's not enough.
Exactly. So, you know, we had the Psychology and Counselors Act that was actually passed by Parliament in 2014. And before I left, before our last session, I actually went and brought it to the attention of the Ministry of Health that there's this act that has been passed. We need to operationalize it. And I think it was, and we're going to have a meeting hopefully with the CS of Health to see what have we done in that respect. But what we have to do as Kenyans, as legislators, as government, we have to make laws that protect and support drug users and their families. Because one, they require help. They require compassion. And their studies, you know, we've got the Commission on the Global Commission on Drug Policy. The studies have shown that this is an area that is completely underfunded, and this is an area that we need interventions, serious interventions, to actually help us save a lot of money that is being wasted on the side, and to actually deal with illicit trafficking of drugs.
Absolutely.
We have to take control of it, and remember that the one thing that drug users need is harm reduction facilities, and I'm glad that our government is doing it. We need to invest more. Our partners also are struggling to find resources, and then we also need to make sure that we compassionately deal with the issues of drug use. They are not criminals, all right? These are citizens that found themselves on the wrong side of the stick and require help.
All right.
And
all right. Does that begin with first of all, just revising of the act, because it was like 1994? You know, the act of 1994, I think.
Actually, Winnie, if you look at if you look at the policies that we have, they're kind of outdated. What we have in Kenya is a copy-paste of what we have in Uganda and Tanzania. So it's like when colonials gave us some documents, we just
held on to it.
Yeah, we just held on to it, and it is hardly changed. But a lot has changed. HIV has come, COVID has come. We've had a lot of public health challenges, and criminalizing drug use is wrong, and we say it's punitive. Why? Because drug use is not a choice.
Yeah.
When you criminalize addiction, it's like you're criminalizing illness. Why are we then not criminalizing diabetes, for example? Because this person has no choice. You see, when somebody starts using drugs, it's probably for leisure. Yeah? I may have a thought or two. But now getting to addiction, when now the brain demands more, is now a level of illness. And that's why we are saying criminalization is punitive. Jail is not a rehabilitation center, because
if anything it propagates, they say, because
yes,
this drug
when people go to jail, evidence shows us that they come back and they do the same thing. The concept of recidivism, there is no data totally that when you take somebody to committee, they are going to stop using. What we have seen in the past is actually when they get TB, they use more drugs, and they come out even more hardened than they went in. So we need to rethink our policies, and the public health scenario demands that you should not punish somebody for an illness, and that's what we are doing.
That's not okay. All right, and glad we have a legislator on set with us to then help us understand. So then, where do leaders come in? How soon, should we see these conversations around reversing some of these policies? And of course, one of them is the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act, and especially when it comes to the punishment. So we're taking a short break, but of course, when we come back, we'd also want to interrogate more on the data and also see what role we all have to play in terms of making sure that we achieve drug-free society. But before we go on a break, just a quick reminder that Kenya, what if we told you that your smile can help those next to you? Well, Colgate is helping you to provide clean drinking water so that our children can have a bright future, and that is by staying in school. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store, over the next 2 months, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 people. Now that is something to smile about. So what you need to do is visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or visit the website on wellborrowedfund.colgate.com for more information. And remember, once again, terms and conditions apply. See you after the break.
I want each and every one of you to stay vigilant. Any drug case as complicated as this one requires a lot of work.
Wait, kwani ili hapa?
Zangu zilikuwa tu mabobe, nimeridhika. Bobe ati peke yangu.
Kwani kulikuwa na mtu mwingine kunisaidia?
Enda itoke ama ndio utakula kopa. Jemo, nganya inatoka leo.
Wala usiniambie mseme hepana doe.
Jemo, tulia.
Blueband peanut butter, made with 100% pure peanuts and a good source of omega-6. Grow healthy and happy kids with Blueband peanut butter. Available in 200 grams, 400 grams, and 800 grams. Buy a pack today.
As a mother, I have to do my duties in the house. It forces me to send her to the river because I have no alternative.
Piaora ok ber, ler bedo ok ler. Otuo nikech piaora. Otuo ok odhi skul, japuonj chunye chandore.
If children had water close by, they won't be sick, they won't be distracted because the water is clean.
Furahia maisha bora, linda jamii yako, linda biashara yako. Chukua bima leo. Tuna bima ya maisha, afya na ajali, mali hata elimu. Chukua bima leo. Linda jamii yako, linda biashara yako. Chukua bima leo. Tuna bima ya maisha, afya na ajali, mali hata elimu.
Safaricom Business is enabling organizations to connect, protect, enable, and transform their businesses by leveraging technology and innovation.
Through technology, we've been able to communicate, keep records, store our data, reach our customers, run our logistics. The future for both Space and Style and Safaricom looks quite promising. We are now looking to go into, digital selling to expand and improve our services and also ensure that our factory and manufacturing processes are actually quite sustainable.
Secure Fiber offers your business a fast, dependable and secure fiber internet connection. Visit www.business.safaricom.co.ke to explore our range of plans tailored to meet your business needs.
Take this opportunity and apply for a degree, diploma, craft certificate or artisan certificate course depending on your grade. Log into students.coops.net and select a course matching your qualification. For more information, visit the COOPS website www.coops.ac.ke or any Huduma Center countrywide.
Blueband peanut butter, made with 100% pure peanuts and a good source of omega-6. Grow healthy and happy kids with Blueband peanut butter. Available in 200 grams, 400 grams and 800 grams. Buy a pack today.
You are watching Your World in association with Colgate.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and of course, time flies. I don't know what usually happens when you're having a great conversation, important conversation at that. And of course, today, again, like we said when we started the show, that 26th June is actually the day or International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. But also, at the same time, of course, there's a whole conversation around the Global Day of Action, and of course, under the tagline, Support, don't punish, and that is what we are exactly interrogating right here on the conversation, and of course asking what role do we all play, all right, just to make sure that number one, we do not stigmatize, we do not discriminate, but at the same time looking at the laws and what needs to be done as far as the laws are concerned, right? So the question that we asked you is, what exactly will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? All right, a number of you have a lot to say on our socials, right? So the question is there on your screen. What exactly will it take to achieve a drug-free society? So keep quiet, Sylvanus. Very quickly, this on Facebook says it's always about a person's sacrifice. Okay, remember, Sylvanus, we said this addiction actually gets to the point it becomes an illness. All right, so when we talk about sacrifice, I'd want you to expound more on the same. All right, and then someone says James Jemo Kariuki says, creating more job opportunities, as simple as that, all right? Kimani SK, still on Facebook, says, drug abuse cannot be eradicated entirely, but it can be minimized by creating awareness of its shortcomings. To achieve this, it will require a multi-stakeholder collective efforts. Absolutely true. And then Brad Kipruto said, individual effort. Okay, all right. And then Maureen Gatwiri, the same as someone else, they're still talking about employment, all right? So Maureen says availability of jobs, and then this is Lizzie, customer service gmail.com. Wow, what a long name. On Facebook still says employment idleness causes depression, which leads to abuse of staff. Danny Musungu, as well as Peter Njagi, continues to say employment. Clearly, job opportunities. People need job opportunities.
Yeah. These addictions that we have is opioids, okay, which people buy with real expensive money illegally, all right? And and synthetic drugs, like speed and all those, right? So the thing is, what you have to remember, we've got both. We've got people who are employed, people who are rich. You see it every day. Somebody who's overdosed, okay, and they're rich. They had a fantastic job. So it's tied also to mental health, emotional well-being. There's a lot of there's a lot of areas. So, so the thing is, we have to understand that every case is unique, right? And now, you know, I've seen the Deputy President going on and saying he's going to deal with Central and the illicit brews because, one, they're really harmful. We've seen how many times have we woken up to headlines where an entire bar of people went blind because of what they consumed. So there's three things here. There's the dangerous products that they're consuming. There's the overconsumption that is actually rendering the family unit completely collapsed. And then there's the unemployment. So if we're going to deal with the illegal brew, all right, we have to figure out what is the alternative that we're giving them that is safe. That's number one, because you cannot say that Central is not going to drink alcohol, period. Again, okay? So we have alcohol for the rich. It's safe. It's and they can afford. How do we create a product that is safe, that is affordable? And then while you're doing that, how do we counsel people and understand why are they over consuming? All right. So we provide the counseling services. And then if it was unemployment, which is a big situation today, right? How do we create opportunity? All right. But it doesn't mean that everybody that you give a job to is going to automatically stop consuming or abuse. Consuming drugs. So we have to figure out how do we find our balance. And while we're doing that, how do we also deal with the trafficking of drugs? We're actually arresting the wrong people. I mean, I was looking at some data here on the people that we jail. I mean, the amount of people that end up in jail.
5,000 that
no, 21%. Globally, 10.35 million people are in prison. All right, of which 20% are because of drug offenses. All right, and global imprisonment of drug users. Right, and then of this, 16%. 16% of all the people incarcerated were non-violent use of drugs. Non-violent, meaning it was just somebody using it in his house. He's not using it going to commit a crime, killing somebody, you know. So we have about 500,000 people, right, who have been who are serving jail term for personal use. You have a stick of cannabis, you were enjoying it in a bar with your friends, you are thrown in for 10 years or whatever. So we have to also understand that he didn't deserve to be in jail. It was his own personal use. He's not trading. The person who's supposed to be in jail, which we're not doing, is the trafficker.
In Kenya, actually, it's 70%.
70%
of people, yes.
This was the worldwide figure, 21%.
Yes.
So we obviously,
in Kenya, if you look at the Human Rights Report from Kenya, around 70% of young people who are in prison right now are there for non-violent drug-related offenses. And so you can see the number of youths that are going to jail just because they were possessing some 1 gram, 3 grams, 5 grams of cannabis. And this is a productive person.
But the app says possession.
We have to
if you are in possession of the same, I mean, the penalties.
Let me tell you, the Global World Commission on Drugs has got ex-presidents. Obasanjo is one of the commissioners there. We've got so many ex-presidents that have actually seen that what we're doing. Can you imagine the amount of money we're spending on prisons? If we took that money, released the ones that are there for personal possession, right? And figure out how are we going to make sure that they get back into society, integrate with society. Because when we send them into prison, what are we doing? We're not helping. We're not reducing the harm, because he'll come out of prison and angry, right? Exactly. So, and then what about the family that you collapse? Maybe it was somebody's father, and then the children in school are telling that child, your father is in jail because of drug, and yet the guy only had a personal stick for himself, his own personal use. So I think we need to review who is serving jail term, if it's 70%, and how do we get them out and integrate them with society, because that money for prisons, right, should be used to help them create opportunity. And if we're going to create a lot of opportunity right now with the money that the government is going to have in all sectors, right, why don't we figure out how we can also find a balance with reducing, helping the ones that are out there that are consuming right now, and making sure we change our laws, because really the whole world is moving towards decriminalization of drug use for personal possession, and then facilitating harm reduction. And if we do that as a country, we will save so much more. There are studies all over that have said that. So we've got to be bold enough to make those bold decisions. Of course, deal with the law in terms of trafficking to make sure our children don't access drugs.
All right. And we're looking up to you, the legislators.
Maybe just to intervene. I think we have best policies, and the legislatures are doing a good job. I mean, if it doesn't work, we put this. But the biggest gap that comes in is the implementation.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, I think in the entire region, East Africa, Kenya, we stand out to be the best in terms of policies.
They come into benchmark on our policies, but then we don't implement our own policies. These other countries are doing the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at, for example, Tanzania, they don't have something like NACADA. Uganda, they don't have. It's like a unit within a Ministry of Health. Same with Tanzania.
Yeah.
But here we have an authority that deals with that. So we have the best, but now the problem comes in implementation. And one of the things that I think Bernice raised was the issue of inadequate resources. I think it's high time that once we get the political goodwill of our leaders, of which I know our president is good at that, the deputy president is also doing that, Mama County is also trying her level best. So if that can trickle down to ensure that at the lowest level, the chief, the village elders are also able to implement what has been put in place by the lawmakers, then we will. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of countries will come to Kenya to benchmark.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest concern is the fact that, and someone mentioned this during the comments, and they said it will take a multi-sectoral approach, which is good. But at the same time, how many times? I mean, Honorable Pasaris mentioned this and said, you know, how many times do you hear someone has been, you know, arrested the entire bar? A lot of people have lost their sight, right? Illicit brew in the country. The police men, some of them, police officers would go arrest wanapewa bribe kidogo, you know, and biashara continues, right? So definitely there are gaps, you know, associated with the same. So I wonder what it will take to, first of all, just close this gap, because this proves to be a big impediment towards achieving a drug-free society.
It is. When you look at public health challenges that we have right now, we can copy from the Ministry of Health. Anytime we have a challenge, we review policies to catch up, to help us catch up. But we have not done this. What George is saying, that we have NACADA, yes, but it's like you have NACADA, but they have no money.
It's not there.
They have no money. That's why we do not have community prevention programs. Go to the University of Nairobi, for example, and just count how many students have dropped out because of drug use. I mean, even our learning institutions do not have so many of these facilities, just to say, now this is where we can, like every level 4 facility has a rehab, has a harm reduction center, so that anybody, even in Garissa, as far as Garissa, because we even found drug use in Garissa, can go and find treatment. So we need to relook at our challenges right now. Drug use is an issue right now.
It really is,
at policy level, what do we need to do? Do we need to give NACADA more money? Yes. Do we need to empower the Ministry of Health harm reduction? Yes. Do we need to do more research? Of course we need to. Because again, you see, a lot of the policies that we have, we copy them a lot from other countries. And some of them do not work.
They don't work,
And that is why, even when we started implementing harm reduction, 10 years down the line, we still do not have an impact study. We don't know how many people have gone through the project. We don't know how many people it has helped. But we would want to know that if we have these policies, if they are not working, why don't we get to the table, government, civil society, and community members, and then let us relook at what is not working, and then we change that. When you talk about drug policies, what we have in the past 50 years, supply suppression and demand reduction. But we are seeing more and more people getting into drug use. Why is this not? It means we need to change a little bit of it. It's working, but not 100%, maybe just 20%, let me say 20%. So where is the 80%? We probably need to get to 70. Are we working with the courts, for example? If you go to, we found people using drugs even amongst civil society, civil servants. We have policemen who are using drugs. We have teachers who are using drugs. Does TSC, for example, have facilities, the skills to support their staffs who are in drug use? No. Does the police, for example, do they have a rehab center? Maybe not. So we need to relook at this, not just looking at drug users as those ones on Grogon and in Madare. We have drug users in offices. Every office has a drug user. So if a colleague falls off because of addiction, what skills do I have to support this person? And probably just call a policeman and say, guy, aka kanatumia heroin. But what if I reached out to this person and say, how can I help you? Can I refer you to a psychiatrist, for example? Realizing that this is an illness and not just calling a police. Because if any of us in this room, if you ask people in this room and ask them, if you met somebody using drugs, what would you do? Somebody will tell you, I'll definitely call a police. It's not like that person is into addiction. And then people also don't realize there are a lot of people that are struggling with addiction also have depression and anxiety and a lot of mental, mild mental illnesses that they are coping with. So helping this person, giving a referral will be more helpful than just calling a policeman. Akona staff leo, wacha nimuitie police. It doesn't help. It really, so we need to relook at how we perceive users, how we perceive people who use, and how we perceive help for people who need it in the society.
And even empower people with the skills.
Yes, and even empower people with the skills,
to help with the same. Okay, and of course from a legislative point, because again, like you said, we should move towards decriminalizing this, right?
Yes.
So what is it that needs to change now as far as the laws are concerned, and given in mind that even our borders are pretty much porous? So really, these drugs just get into the country, and by the time we tunashtuka, oh, okay, shisha, I mean, it was banned, right? But still now,
it still exists.
Right? And certain clubs, people are still using and all those things. So starting from our borders to the people who are distributing these drugs to, and of course, even changing or revising our laws, as far as criminalizing all drug users.
I think we have to understand that we do have drug users in our country. We do have women that have been affected negatively, and a lot of single mothers. All right, we have drug users who are also having children. All right, and then we have to understand that that child probably is inclined to be a drug user in the future because of the fact that the mother used drugs. So it's a ripple effect problem. So what we have to do as a country is not wear blinders, be aware. And that's why when I saw the harm reduction facilities in Portugal, and I came back and visited the one we have in Gara and the one we have in Madare Hospital here in my county, I saw there were problems relating to this. Like you're giving somebody methadone, all right? And the problem is that person doesn't have the resources to walk or the food after they've taken the drug. So as a government, we have to give them the support. And then once they finish that, we created some job opportunities for the ones who came out of Gara. We said, what do you want to do? We sat down with them and we asked them. Some wanted to go for driving. All right? They've been completely rehabilitated. But then if you don't have an intervention that gives them something to stand on solid ground, then they collapse again. So we as government have to look at the problem holistically and really have the compassion to help and to understand. And I think if we're looking at study and data, let's start with the ones that are out and also the ones that are in prison. Because look at all those families that you're going to reunite, right? Who had members of their family that were arrested for possession. Those who were arrested because of trafficking, right? I know most of them also, it was trying to make a quick buck here and a quick buck there. I mean, anyone who traffics it, I have an issue with freeing them out there. But the ones who've been having it for personal use. And then let's also look at the law and decide. Certain countries are saying if you have 2 grams or 5 grams, it's for personal use. You're not trading in it. It's okay. All right. So we have to look at that. And then if you look at the whole world, I mean, we were in South Africa recently for Pan-African, and we visited a marijuana farm, and we saw, and it's controlled, the government has controlled it, it's issued licenses, they're making resources with it, because you see, you've got opioids and then you've got cannabis. We've got a lot of cancer. If by smoking or using a what do you call it?
Medicated,
the THC.
Or THC.
Yeah, you are able to relieve yourself of pain. There's a lot of people that are suffering with pain. I was fortunate to be in Richard Branson's island, Necker, to discuss cannabis, as a medical intervention, especially for people for cancer. There was a lady who came all the way from Australia. She had her child had a tumor in the brain. The child was in so much pain. She wanted the child to be able to access, legally within the country. So even in Canada, the reason the law changed is somebody went to court and said, look, I don't want opioids. I want to be able to have my cannabis. So I should be allowed. So they legalize it. So as we legalize, we also put in the controls.
A bit of, within.
So the thing is, this is something that grows wild in our places. And we've had MPs that say, I smoke it. I mean, we even had a presidential candidate who stood on the podium and said, I smoke it.
There was a lot of conversation.
So we're liberal in this way, but the legislation is slow. So how do we come up with the two? And the legislation should come with controls, right? And the laws should come with controls so that we also don't create an even bigger monster.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, last year there was a lot of debate around legalizing marijuana in the country. So
there's a difference. However, there's a
Okay.
difference between decriminalizing and legalizing.
Okay. Yes.
When you talk about decriminalizing, we are talking about possession for personal use.
Okay.
That is small quantities. You possess small quantities. We are
Regulated
talking about
quantities.
0.1.
Yeah.
The government can determine, for example, the government chemist can determine how much, like, for example, if I use heroin, what quantity do I use in a day if I'm an addict, for example.
Okay.
So if it is an average addict uses between 0.1 up to 1 gram in a day.
Yeah.
So if I am arrested with below 0.1, the police will definitely know this is for personal use because I cannot sell it. It is for my use. And then again, there is a system in which we can know who is addicted, who is not. So decriminalizing means somebody who is possessing for use, which can be determined by weight, then this person does not go to jail. This person can be diverted to other community programs, you know, like Endufagie police station, for example.
Community
Endutoe
service.
takataka pale kwa Nairobi River,
help.
for example.
Okay.
But
All
now
right.
when you talk about legalizing, this is now when we have the cannabis debate. And then we say now for scientific and medicinal use. That's the difference between
it has a lot of regulations as well. Okay.
Yes.
All right. George, very quickly in terms of the prevention, and especially when it comes to our children, you know, who are more at risk again, because again, like we said, the age of initiation is going lower by the day, right? When we were growing up, just even talking about alcohol or even thinking about it, you'd hear like your mom slap you.
Yes.
I think where the gap is, if you look at the World Drug Report that was released last year, it was very clear that women are on top of the game. I mean, they're here. They're the worst victims. And if you look at these affected or even users, if you look at the people who spend a lot of time with the children, your father didn't spend a lot of time with you, it was your mom.
They were busy. Yeah.
So if your mom is the one smoking, using bang and all that, definitely this child who is around that will be found in that mess.
Okay.
And then there is this point that you talked about, the multi-sectoral approach.
Yeah.
I know NACADA is really trying their level best. They have the anti-narcotic, the police, the youth and all that. They're trying to put them together. But again, if there is no commitment, individual commitment. I wouldn't want to put the policy makers and everyone. When, as a police, you walk into a bar and collect whatever you collect, do you think about your child being in that situation? You don't think. But if we can put ourselves in that scenario, that my child is here. If I'm doing this, this person will find an avenue to sell to my child. My child will be addicted. Where will I get support? So if we are able to think in that aspect, I think we can be able to bring change. At times, I become passionate about this because I also have children. I'm trying to imagine about my boy who is 5, 6 years old now. If I make it open, where will I be the next? Because the next thing is that he will start by selling my tie, my shirt, my coat, then everything is gone.
Yes.
So if we are not able to make this thing an individual responsibility, there is the commitment. But if we don't make it an individual responsibility, I don't think next, maybe in the
doesn't
next...
matter how many laws we have or policies.
We will not be able to make a difference.
All right.
Yeah.
Judge, allow me to take that as your parting shot. Very strong point to end the show. Yeah. But it's very quickly, because I can see, yes, we need to literally be out. So it'll give you 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and then...
I think we need to relook at our prevention programs. We need community prevention. We need churches to start talking about drugs. We need families to start talking about drugs. The family is the one that socializes a child. We need information out there. We need government to create awareness. We need civil society to come on board and partner with government so that we give as much information as possible so that when it comes to prevention, we are covered. There we have a gap. Then we go to treatment. How many facilities do we have for treatment? We need every person suffering substance use disorders to be able to go to a level 3 primary healthcare facility, get a nurse, get a mental health practitioner, and get treatment. That is not happening right now.
Yeah.
Because if you go and get treatment, then it means you're good to go. It's just an illness like any other. Then we now need to change our policies to fit with all this. And of course, we need government to fund.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Funding is a major issue. Investments, deliberate investments should be made towards the same. All right, Honorable Pasaris, very quickly, as far as legislation.
Yes, we've got the harm reduction and rehabilitation law coming in, and we want to make sure that we have adequate budgets, and of course enhance. And of course, this is a global cry for budgets. It's not just Kenya; it's the whole world. We need more money for harm reduction because it's been proven to work, right? And the theme for this year is people first, stop the stigma and discrimination, strengthen prevention. You know, we have to recognize that drug substance disorder is and drug use is an illness, and we need to be compassionate to drug users, support the families of drug users, and also look at our criminal justice system. Throwing people who have possession of for personal use is wrong. So, and that's why the support, not punish. We need to support, not punish. Support, not punish. Yes.
I like that. I like that. And of course, Bernice says prison is not rehabilitation centers.
No, it's not.
They should not be there in the first place. Honorable Esther Pasaris, Women Representative Nairobi, as well as the chapter chair for Eastern and Southern Africa Unite Parliamentary Platform. And of course, we also had George Odalo, Executive Director and Founder, Slum Child Foundation. And of course, as well as Bernice Ponti, who's the CEO of Vocal Kenya, but she is also a drug policy expert and as well as a researcher. Thank you so much. Clearly 1 hour is not enough. We need like 5 more hours so that we can comprehensively have this conversation.
Okay. Nakanda is celebrating the day at Bomas. And I think we've invited everyone.
Yes.
So if you have time,
please make your way there. Absolutely. Good. All right. And of course, we also asked you a question, what will it take for us to achieve a drug-free society? A lot of you still emphasizing on creating jobs. Juma Spetio says, create more jobs is the only remedy. And then James Mantara says, increase tax. All right. So let's keep the conversation going on our socials at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter and on our YouTube channel as well at NTV Kenya. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. But for now, have yourselves a lovely day. Goodbye.